The great chamber of the Galactic Unity Council was filled with silence. Hundreds of representatives from dozens of species sat in their seats. Watching the center platform where Ambassador Park Tae-ho stood alone, he was 67 years old. His hair had turned white many years ago, and his face carried the lines of a man who had spent his life speaking carefully and listening even more carefully. He had served humanity for 40 years in this chamber. He had made friends here. He had built bridges between species that had hated each other for centuries. He had believed, truly believed, that the council was a place where justice could exist. Now he stood accused of murder. Counselor. Bryn of the Torvani species pointed at the holographic display floating above the chamber. Images of a destroyed ship filled the air. Bodies floated in the darkness of space. 12,000 Torvani civilians dead. The evidence is clear, Bryn said. His voice was loud and filled with anger. Human warships attacked this colony vessel without warning. They fired upon innocent families. Children died in the cold of space because humans decided to show their true nature. Park Tae-ho did not move. He did not speak. He had learned long ago that interrupting only made things worse. Bryn continued. For 82 years, humans have pretended to be our friends. They smiled at us. They offered help. They built hospitals on our worlds and sent teachers to our schools. But it was all a lie. They were waiting for the right moment to strike. In the gallery above the main floor, Admiral Kong Sora watched in silence. She was 54 years old, with short black hair and eyes that showed nothing of what she felt. She commanded the Human Defense Fleet, and she knew the truth about what had happened to that Torvani ship. The truth was simple. The Torvani colony ship had suffered a reactor failure. The Torvani had ignored safety warnings for years, refusing to spend money on proper maintenance. When the reactor began to fail, the ship sent out a distress call. Human rescue vessels were the first to arrive. Human engineers had boarded the dying ship. They had worked in compartments flooded with radiation, trying to save the reactor. 7 human engineers had died in that effort. They had managed to save 4,000 passengers before the ship finally exploded. But Bryn was not showing that part of the story. The images he displayed had been carefully edited. The human rescue ships had been removed from the footage. The timeline had been changed. The truth had been buried. High Arbiter Nell sat at the highest seat in the chamber. She was ancient, even by the standards of her long-lived species. Her skin was pale blue, and her eyes were large and dark. She had led the council for over a century, and she was known for her fairness, or so Park Tae-ho had believed. Ambassador Park Nell said, her voice thin but carrying across the chamber, "You may now respond to these charges." Park Tae-ho looked around the chamber. He saw faces he had known for decades. Some looked away from his gaze. Others stared at him with hatred they had never shown before. A few seemed troubled, uncertain. "High Arbiter," Park Tae-ho said, "I request permission to present our evidence. We have the complete sensor logs from our rescue vessels. We have the communications records showing the Torvani distress call. We have the names of the 7 human engineers who died trying to save that ship." He paused. The chamber was completely silent. "We also have testimony from over 3,000 Torvani survivors who were rescued by human ships. They will confirm what truly happened that day." Counselor Bryn laughed. It was not a kind sound. Of course, the humans have their own evidence. Of course, they have manufactured their own version of events. This is what they do. They lie. They deceive. They manipulate. The survivors are Torvani citizens, Park Tae-ho said calmly. They are your own people. Will you not hear their words? Bryn's face twisted with anger. Those survivors have been contaminated by human propaganda. Their testimony cannot be trusted. Park Tae-ho felt something cold settle in his chest. He had been a diplomat for 40 years. He knew when a decision had already been made before the discussion began. He looked up at High Arbiter Nell. "Arbiter, I formally request a delay of 30 days to gather and present our evidence. This is our right under council law." Nell was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke. "The evidence presented by the Torvani is compelling. A delay would only cause more pain to the families of the victims. I am calling for an immediate vote. Park Tae-ho closed his eyes for just a moment. When he opened them again, his face showed nothing. The vote was quick. 7 species voted against humanity. 4 voted in humanity's favor. The rest abstained, too afraid to choose a side. The council has decided, Nell announced. Humanity is found guilty of unprovoked aggression against a civilian vessel. The following sanctions will be imposed. All trade with human territories will be restricted. Human military forces will be reduced by 60%. And reparations of 7 trillion credits will be paid to the Torvani people over the next 50 years. Park Tae-ho stood still as the judgment was read. He did not argue. He did not protest. He simply listened. When it was finished, he bowed slightly to the chamber. The human territories acknowledged the council's decision, he said. His voice was calm and polite. We will comply with all requirements. Then he turned and walked out of the chamber. In the gallery, Admiral Kong Sora watched him leave. Their eyes met for just a moment. No words were exchanged. No expressions changed. But something passed between them. An understanding that had no need for language. That night, from his quarters on the station, Park Tae-ho sent a coded message to Earth. It contained only one sentence. The tree remembers what the axe forgets. On Earth, the message was received and understood. Orders were prepared. Ships were readied. But no weapons were armed. No war was planned. Something else was coming. Something the Council would not expect. Something that would teach the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. The humans would not fight. They would not scream or threaten or demand justice. They would simply leave, and the silence they left behind would speak louder than any weapon ever could. 3 months passed after the Council's verdict. Across the galaxy, something strange began to happen. It happened slowly at first, so slowly that most species did not notice. The humans were leaving. Captain Yoon Ji-ho stood on the bridge of the medical ship, Healer's Promise. For 6 years, this ship had traveled to the poorest and most desperate corners of the galaxy. It had treated plagues, healed wounds, and saved lives that no one else cared about saving. The ship asked for nothing in return. It was a gift from humanity to those who needed help. Now Ji-ho held new orders in his hands. Return to human space. Leave nothing behind except what belongs to others. He found Dr. Choi Hannah in the medical bay, packing her equipment. She was 42 years old, with tired eyes and gentle hands. She had spent the last 5 years studying Keth immune disorders. The Keth were a refugee species, driven from their home world by a dying sun. Their immune systems could not adapt to new environments. Without treatment, they died slowly and painfully. Hannah had developed treatments that worked. She had saved thousands of Keth lives. Her research was stored in data crystals that she carefully placed in a small box. The research stays, Ji-ho said quietly. Hannah looked up at him. For a moment, something like pain crossed her face. Then she nodded. She copied all her files, all her notes, all her years of work, and left the copies on the Keth Station's medical database. They will continue without us, she said, but her voice was not certain. Director Fen of the Keth settlement came running when he heard the humans were leaving. He was old for a Keth, his gray skin marked with age spots, his forearms trembling as he grabbed Ji-ho's hands. Please, Fen begged. Please, you cannot go. Our children are sick. Our doctors do not understand the treatments. Without you, they will die. Ji-ho looked at the old Keth with kind eyes, but his answer was firm. The Council has spoken. Humanity respects their decision. We are no longer welcome in Council space. But we are not the Council. Fen cried. We did not vote against you. We have no voice in that chamber. Please, do not punish us for what others have done. Hannah put her hand on Fen's shoulder. We are not punishing you, she said softly. We are simply following the rules we have been given. The Council restricted human activities in their space. We are complying. Fen fell to his knees. Tears ran down his gray face. The children, he whispered. What will happen to the children? Neither human answered. There was nothing to say. The healer's promise departed that night. It was the last human ship to leave Keth's space. Behind it, the lights of the refugee settlement grew smaller and smaller until they disappeared into the darkness. On the Mirren trade worlds, the departure happened just as quietly. The Mirren were a merchant species, and humans had been their most reliable trading partners for decades. Human goods were high quality. Human contracts were always honored. Human merchants paid their debts and expected others to do the same. Merchant Guild leader Voss watched in confusion as the human trading posts began to close. One by one, the shops shut their doors. The warehouses were emptied. The ships departed. But the humans did something that Voss did not expect. They settled every debt. They completed every contract. They delivered every promised shipment. They took nothing that was not theirs, and they left nothing that they owed. When the last human merchant ship prepared to leave, Voss went to the docking bay himself. The ship's captain was a young woman named Beek Yuna. She was barely 30 years old. With a quick smile that had made her popular among the Mirren traders, she was not smiling now. "Why are you doing this?" Voss demanded. "You have done nothing wrong. The Torvani lead. Everyone knows they lied. Why do you accept this punishment?" Yuna looked at him calmly. "We are not accepting punishment. We are removing ourselves from a system that does not want us. But we want you," Voss said. "The Mirren want you. The Keth want you. The Karasi want you. It is only the Torvani and their allies who hate you." Then perhaps Yuna said quietly, "You should have spoken louder when the vote was taken." She turned and walked onto her ship. The doors closed behind her. An hour later, the ship was gone. Across the galaxy, the same scenes repeated. Human teachers finished their semesters and said goodbye to their students. Human engineers completed their projects and left detailed instructions behind. Human doctors treated their last patients and handed over their records. Human peacekeepers finished their rotations and returned home. There was no anger in their departure, no bitterness, no threats of revenge. They simply packed their things and left at the border between council space and human territory. Station Commander Rail watched the last human ships pass through. Rail was a Velthi, a species known for their careful observation and long memories. He had served on this station for 20 years, and he had never seen anything like this. Thousands of ships moving in perfect order. Families, merchants, soldiers, scientists, all going home. One ship stopped briefly beside the station. Its captain sent a simple message. "Thank you for your service, Commander. May your path be peaceful." Then it was gone. Rail stood at his window for a long time, watching the empty space where the human ships had been. He had a strange feeling in his chest. It felt like the moment before a storm, when the air grows still and heavy. Something was coming. He was certain of it, but the humans were not coming back with weapons. They were not coming back at all, and somehow, that was worse. In the council chambers, the representatives celebrated their victory. The humans had been humbled. Their power had been reduced. The threat they represented had been contained. Councillor Bren received congratulations from his allies. He smiled and accepted their praise. He did not notice that some seats in the chamber were already growing empty. He did not see that some species were beginning to look at the Torvani with new eyes. Eyes that held doubt. Eyes that held fear. The humans were gone. And the galaxy did not yet understand what that meant. But it would learn. Soon it would learn. 1 year had passed since the humans left. The galaxy was beginning to understand what it had lost. On the Keth refugee worlds, the plague came without warning. It started in the children, as these things often did. A fever that would not break. A cough that grew worse with each passing day. Small bodies growing weaker and weaker until they could no longer fight. Director Fenn stood in the medical center, watching the rows of sick children. There were hundreds of them now. More arrived every day. The Keth doctors worked without rest. But they did not understand the treatments that Dr. Choi Hanna had developed. The data she left behind was complete, but it required knowledge they did not have. Human medical science was different from theirs. The machines required human training to operate correctly. Fen had sent messages to the council begging for help. The Torvani finally responded. They sent 3 medical ships, staffed by Torvani doctors who had never treated Keth's patients before. The Torvani doctors did their best, but they did not know Keth biology. They did not understand the immune disorders that made the Keth so vulnerable. Within weeks, the plague had spread to 4 more settlements. 12,000 Keth died in the first month. By the end of the 3rd month, the number had risen to 40,000. Fen stood in the communications center, recording a message. His face was hollow with grief. His hands shook as he spoke. We ask again for human medical assistance. We know they have the knowledge to stop this plague. We know they can save our children. Please, we beg the council to contact the humans. We will pay any price. We will give anything. Just send us the doctors who can help. The message was sent to the council. It was never answered. On the trade routes between the Myron and Velthi territories, the first shots were fired on a cold morning in the 3rd month. It started with a trade dispute. A Miron cargo ship accused a Velthi customs station of charging illegal fees. The Velthi accused the Miron of smuggling illegal goods. Words were exchanged. Then weapons. In the old days, humans would have been called to mediate. Human diplomats had a reputation for fairness. They did not favor one species over another. They listened to both sides and found solutions that satisfied everyone. But the humans were gone. There was no one to stand between the Miron and Velthi. No one to calm the anger. No one to find a compromise. The border skirmishes grew worse each month. By the 6th month, both species had recalled their ambassadors. By the 9th month, warships patrolled the border. By the end of the year, the first real battle had been fought. 200 ships destroyed, 8,000 dead, and the war was just beginning. Merchant Guild leader Voss watched his trading empire collapse. Without human intermediaries, the Miron could not safely trade with half the species in the galaxy. Old hatreds had returned. Old wounds had reopened. We need the humans back, he said to his council of merchants. Without them, we will all destroy each other. But no one knew how to bring the humans back. No one knew what to say to them. In the council chambers, Councillor Bren faced questions he could not answer. The Keth representative demanded to know why no one was helping their people. The Keresi representative asked who would mediate the Miron-Velthi war. The others simply stared at Bren with eyes full of accusation. Minister Dal, the Torvani economic advisor, presented his report in a quiet voice. His hands were trembling. Our economy has contracted by 23% in 1 year, he said. Human technology was built into our infrastructure. Human goods filled our markets. Human trade routes connected us to hundreds of worlds. Without these things, we are failing. Bren slammed his fist on the table. Then we will take what we need. The humans cannot hide forever. We will send our fleet to their border and demand they return. Station Commander Rail, who had been called to give testimony, shook his head slowly. That would be unwise, Counselor. Why? Bren demanded. The humans have reduced their military as we ordered. They are weak now. Rail looked at the Counselor with tired eyes. The human border is completely sealed. Their patrol ships do not respond to our hails. Any ship that crosses into their space is gently escorted back out. They do not threaten. They do not attack. They simply return our ships and say nothing. Then we will force our way through, Bren said. We have tried, Rail replied. We sent a scout ship last month. It was stopped by a human patrol vessel. Our ship was undamaged, but its engines were disabled with a single precise shot. The humans towed it back to our space and released it without a word. He paused. Their targeting was perfect, Counselor. They could have destroyed our ship. They chose not to. But the message was clear. They can protect their border. And they will. Bren's face grew red with anger. But before he could speak, another voice filled the chamber. The humans have been busy during their isolation. Everyone turned to look at the speaker. It was journalist Mira, a Keresi reporter, who had been investigating the original colony ship incident for months. I have been to the survivor settlements, she said. I have spoken to the Torvani who were rescued from that ship. They tell a different story than the one we heard in this chamber. She activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air. Human rescue ships approaching the damaged Torvani vessel. Human engineers working in radiation-flooded compartments. Human bodies being recovered after the explosion. The humans did not attack that ship, Mira said. They tried to save it. 7 human engineers died in the rescue attempt. Over 4,000 Torvani were saved because of their sacrifice. The chamber was completely silent. The evidence presented by Counselor Bryn was fabricated, Mira continued. The timestamps were altered. The human rescue ships were edited out of the footage. The truth was hidden to serve a political agenda. She turned to face Bryn directly. The Council did not punish murderers. The Council punished heroes. And now the galaxy is paying the price. Bryn opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. For the first time in his life, he had nothing to say. High Arbiter Nell sat in her high seat, watching the chaos unfold below. Her ancient face showed no expression, but her hands hidden beneath the table were shaking. She had known. In her heart, she had known the evidence was not complete. She had allowed the vote to proceed anyway, because it was politically convenient, because the Torvani were powerful allies, because it was easier than seeking the truth. Now the Keth were dying. The Mirren and Velthi were at war. The economy was collapsing. And the humans, the one species that had always helped without asking for power in return, were gone. The galaxy was unraveling, and it was all her fault. 2 years had passed since the humans withdrew from Council space. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. The evidence of Torvani, deception had spread across every world. Journalist Mira's report had been seen by billions. The survivors of the colony ship had told their stories. The truth could no longer be hidden. On 3 Keth worlds, riots broke out. The refugees had lost over 100,000 people to the plague. They had watched their children die while the Council did nothing. Now they knew that the humans who could have saved them had been driven away by lies. The Keth burned Torvani trading posts. They attacked Torvani ships. They screamed for justice in streets filled with the memories of their dead. The Mirren formally withdrew from the Council. Their representatives stood before the chamber and spoke words that echoed through the galaxy. We joined this council because we believed in unity, she said. We believed that together we could build something greater than ourselves. But this council does not serve unity. It serves the powerful. It protects the liars. It punishes the innocent. We will not be part of this anymore. She walked out of the chamber. She did not look back. The council convened an emergency session. The great chamber, once filled with hundreds of representatives, now held less than half that number. Empty seats stared at those who remained like accusing eyes. Counselor Jem of the Curacy rose to speak. The Curacy had been friends of humanity for decades. They had voted against the sanctions. They had tried to present the truth. No one had listened. I will now show you what really happened, Jem said. Not the edited footage, not the lies. The complete record from the colony ship incident, the holographic display activated. For 20 minutes, the chamber watched in silence. They saw the Torvani colony ship sending its distress call. They saw the human rescue vessels arriving within hours. They saw the human engineers boarding the dying ship. Knowing they were walking into a death trap, they saw those engineers working in compartments flooded with radiation. Their skin burning, their bodies failing. They saw them refusing to leave, even as their own doctors begged them to evacuate. They saw them staying until the last possible moment, saving every life they could. They saw the 7 human engineers who never came back. Young men and women who had given everything for strangers, were not their own people, and they saw the human ships carrying over 4,000 Torvani survivors to safety, asking for nothing in return. When the footage ended, High Arbiter Nell spoke. Her voice was barely a whisper. What have we done? No one answered. There was no answer to give. General Thane of the Torvani military rose from his seat. He was a large male with hard eyes and a scarred face. He had built his career on strength and aggression. He did not know how to show weakness. "Solution is simple," he said. "We force the humans to return. Our fleet is still powerful. We will go to their border and demand they come back. If they refuse, we will make them comply." Counselor Jem looked at him with cold eyes. "You would start a war with the species we have already wronged?" "It is not a war if they cannot fight back," Thane replied. "The sanctions reduced their military. They are weak now." Station Commander Rail, who had been watching from the gallery, stepped forward. "May I speak, General?" Thane waved his hand impatiently. "Speak." "I have been monitoring the human border for 2 years," Rail said. "I have watched their patrol ships. I've studied their movements. I have gathered intelligence from every source available to me." He paused. "The humans have not been idle during their isolation. They have been building. Their defensive capabilities have tripled in 2 years. Perhaps more." Thane laughed. "Impossible. We have satellites watching their space. We would have seen such construction, would we?" Rail asked quietly. "The humans are clever, General. They do not build where we can see. They do not show us what they do not want us to know. All we see is what they allow us to see." He activated his own display. Images appeared showing human patrol ships. But these were not the old vessels the Council remembered. These were newer, faster, more powerful. "These images were captured at extreme range," Rail said. "The humans did not know we were watching. Their new ships are unlike anything we have faced before. If we attack their border, we will not win." Thane's face grew red with anger. But before he could respond, security officers entered the chamber. They walked directly to Counselor Bryn. "Counselor Bryn," the lead officer said, "you are under arrest for fabricating evidence, deceiving the Council, and inciting interspecies conflict. You will come with us." Bryn stared at them in disbelief. "You cannot do this. I am a counselor." "I have immunity. Your immunity has been revoked," High Arbiter Nell said. Her voice was tired but firm. "The Council has voted. You will face trial for your crimes." As the officers took his arms, Bren began to shout. "I did what was necessary. The humans were growing too powerful. They were everywhere, building their hospitals and their schools, making everyone depend on them. I saved us from becoming their servants." The officers dragged him toward the door. His voice echoed through the chamber. "You will regret this. When the humans return for revenge, you will wish you had listened to me. They will destroy us all." The doors closed behind him. The chamber fell silent. Counselor Jem spoke softly. "The humans have had 2 years to take revenge. They have not fired a single shot. They have not threatened a single world. They simply closed their borders and waited." She looked around the chamber. "They are not coming for revenge. That is not who they are. And that is exactly why we should be afraid." High Arbiter Nell made her decision. "We will send a formal delegation to the human border. We will ask for a meeting with Ambassador Park Tai-ho. We will apologize. We will offer to reverse the sanctions. We will do whatever they ask." The delegation was assembled within days. 3 senior diplomats carrying messages of peace and regret. They traveled to the border station and sent their request. Then they waited. 1 day passed. Then 2. Then 3. On the 4th day, a single message arrived from human space. It was short. It contained only 7 words. "We received your communication. Thank you." Nothing else. No acceptance. No rejection. No demands. Just silence. The diplomats sent more messages. They explained the situation. They described the chaos in council space. They begged for a response. The humans said nothing. On the 7th day, the diplomats returned to the council with empty hands. They had traveled across the galaxy to apologize. They had not even been allowed to speak. High Arbiter Nell sat alone in her chambers that night. She was very old now. Her blue skin had grown pale. Her dark eyes had lost their sharpness. She had led the council for over a century. She had made countless decisions. Some good, some bad. But none had haunted her like this one. The humans were not cruel. They were not seeking revenge. They had simply decided that the council was not worth their time anymore, and somehow that was the cruelest thing of all. 3 years had passed since the humans withdrew from the galaxy. The council still existed, but it was a shadow of what it had been. Half its members had left. The rest met in chambers that felt too large, too empty, too quiet. High Arbiter Nell made a decision that shocked everyone who knew her. She would go to the human border herself, not as the leader of the council. Not with diplomats or guards or grand declarations. She would go alone, as one person seeking to right a terrible wrong. Her advisors begged her not to go. She was old. She was frail. The journey was long and dangerous, but she would not listen. "I led the council when this wrong was done," she said. "If anyone should answer for it, it is me." She traveled in a small shuttle alone. It took her 3 weeks to reach the border. When she arrived, she stopped her ship just outside human space and began broadcasting a message. "My name is Nell. I was the High Arbiter of the Galactic Unity Council. I am the one who allowed the vote against humanity to proceed. I am the one who ignored the evidence. I am the one who let politics destroy justice." She paused. Her voice was shaking. "I do not ask for forgiveness. I do not deserve it. I ask only for the chance to say these words to someone who will hear them. I was wrong. The council was wrong, and I am sorry." She broadcast this message every hour for 7 days. She ate little. She slept less. She simply sat in her small shuttle and waited. On the 8th day, a human ship appeared. It was small, just a patrol vessel. It approached her shuttle slowly, carefully. A voice came through her communication system. "High Arbiter Nell, you will follow us." She followed. They took her to a human station at the edge of their space. It was not a grand place, just a simple outpost with gray walls and functional lighting. She was led to a small meeting room with 2 chairs and a table. Ambassador Park Taiho was waiting for her. He looked older than she remembered. His white hair had thinned. His face carried more lines. But his eyes were the same, calm, patient. Seeing everything, Nell sat across from him. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Nell began to talk. She told him everything. She admitted that she had known the evidence was incomplete. She confessed that she had allowed political convenience to override justice. She described the suffering that had followed. The Keth Plague, the Miranvelthi War, the economic collapse, the lives destroyed. She did not make excuses. She did not ask for understanding. She simply told the truth. When she finished, Park Taiho was silent for a long time. Then he spoke. "The humans do not hate the council," he said. "We are not angry. We are simply no longer interested in being your solution to problems you refuse to solve yourselves." Nell lowered her head. "I understand. For 82 years, we tried to help," Park continued. "We built hospitals and schools. We mediated conflicts and created trade routes. We gave freely, asking for nothing but friendship in return. And when we were needed most, when the truth could have been found with the smallest effort, you chose to believe lies instead."
Oh.
His voice was not angry. It was simply tired. "We will not return to the Council, Arbiter. That chapter of our history is closed." Nell felt tears forming in her old eyes. "Then there is no hope?" Park looked at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he shook his head. "I did not say that." Far away, on Earth, President Shin Nari addressed the human population. She was 58 years old, with steady hands and a voice that carried authority. "For 3 years, we have lived apart from the galaxy," she said. "We have healed our wounds. We have strengthened our defenses. We have remembered who we are." She paused. "Now it is time to decide who we will become." She explained the plan. Humans would not return to the council. That institution had proven itself unworthy of trust. But humanity would not remain isolated forever. Instead, they would build something new. Bilateral relationships with species that had proven trustworthy, aid to those in genuine need, given freely and without political conditions. Open borders for those who came with honest intentions. "We will not forget what was done to us," Shinari said, "but we will not let that memory poison our future. We are better than that. We have always been better than that." Young delegate Han Minho was appointed as the first liaison to species outside council authority. He was only 32 years old, but he had been chosen for his honesty and his open heart. The Keth were the first to receive an invitation. Director Fen, old and worn by years of grief, wept when the message arrived. Human medical ships would return to Keth space. Human doctors would treat the sick. Human teachers would share their knowledge, not as members of the council, not as subjects of political games. Simply as friends helping friends, the Kairasi came next. They had stood by humanity during the trial. They had tried to speak the truth when no one would listen. The humans remembered. The Miron followed. Merchant Guild leader Voss traveled personally to the human border, carrying nothing but his gratitude. The trading relationship was rebuilt, stronger than before. Admiral Kong Sora stood on the bridge of her flagship. Watching as the first non-human ships in 3 years crossed into human space, they were not council ships. They were ships from the Keth, the Kirasi, and the Miran, species that had earned the right to be called friends. A junior officer stood beside her, watching the same scene. He was young, barely out of training. He had never known a galaxy where humans worked alongside other species. "Admiral," he said quietly, "are we forgiving them?" Sora considered the question for a long moment. Her eyes never left the approaching ships. She said finally, "We are starting over. With those who earned it." The council still existed. The Torvani still sat in their ancient seats. But they sat alone now, surrounded by empty chairs and silent walls. The power they had fought so hard to protect had slipped through their fingers like sand. They had not been conquered. They had not been destroyed. They had simply been left behind. High Arbiter Nell returned to council space after her meeting with Park. Taiho, she was quieter than before, sadder, but there was something else in her eyes now. Something that looked almost like peace. She had done what she could. It was not enough. It would never be enough. But she had tried. That would have to be her legacy. The galaxy had learned a lesson it would not soon forget. The humans had not come with fire and weapons. They had not demanded blood for blood. They had done something far more devastating. They had left. They had taken their kindness, their knowledge, their helping hands, and they had simply walked away. They had closed their doors to those who wronged them and opened them to those who deserved better. And the silence they left behind was louder than any war. It was a silence that asked a simple question. What do you do when the helpers stop helping? What do you do when the kind ones walk away? What do you do when you finally have to answer for your own actions? The council had no answer. And in that silence, the galaxy finally understood the truth. The humans had never needed them. It was the galaxy that had needed the humans. And now, slowly, carefully, one honest relationship at a time. The humans were deciding who was worthy of being needed in return. Not everyone would make the list. Not everyone deserved to. But for those who did, the future was bright. And for those who did not, there was only silence. Endless, terrible silence.